everyone, it's me, Carly Burridge, founder and owner of Gaining Health, where we provide tools and resources for providers who want to start or optimize an obesity program. And it's time for another episode of What's Up Wednesday, where I review a recent journal article or book that is related to treating the disease of obesity. So the article that we're discussing today is called Intermittent versus Continuous Energy Restriction for Weight Loss and Metabolic Improvement, a meta-analysis and systematic review by Shahi et al. And it was in the January 2021 edition of the Obesity Journal. So the objective of this study, as you can tell by the title, was to compare intermittent energy restriction to continuous energy restriction with a similar overall calorie restriction between those two groups. So all 11 studies that they used for this were randomized controlled trials, were at least 2 months in duration, and included subjects with either pre-obesity or obesity. So everyone had at least a BMI of 25 or greater. In the intermittent energy restriction group, these studies that they included for this were all either 5 and 2, so where 2 days a week are severely energy restricted, or the alternate day fasting, where every other day has severe energy restriction. So the energy restriction on the fasting days was a total of 400 to 600 calories per day for these subjects. And then the non-fasting day was just ad lib intake with the recommendation to eat healthy. Still try to eat healthy food on those non-fasting days, but no restriction with calories on their non-fasting days. Then the continual energy restriction group, they restricted their calories by 400 to 600 calories every day below what their usual intake was. So somebody typically eats a 2,000 calorie per day, if that's their baseline, reducing that by 400 to 600 calories per day, which was about a 20 to 33% energy restriction. And this was again on a daily basis. And the energy composition of the nutrition plan that they were using for most of these studies was a Mediterranean type diet. So what they found in the meta-analysis was that the intermittent energy restriction studies showed greater effects on absolute weight loss, percent weight loss, and improving insulin sensitivity, often indicated by HOMA-IR scores, than the continuous energy restricted studies, at least in the short term, 2 to 3 months. So there's still more data that we need for long-term effects. The longer the studies went on, the less we saw a difference between the intermittent energy restriction and the continual energy restriction. But their conclusion was that we really just need more long-term studies on this. So some of the other things to look at is, one of the concerns with intermittent fasting or this intermittent energy restriction is loss of fat-free mass or lean mass, muscle mass. So they looked at that in several of these studies as well. And what they found was that there was a greater loss of fat-free mass in the intermittent energy restriction groups, but there was no difference in the percent lost as fat-free mass between the groups. So the percent loss was the same. So it wasn't like there was more percent fat-free mass loss in the intermittent energy restricted groups, which is important to note. All groups that lose weight are going to have a little bit of decrease in fat-free mass and lean mass. So again, we want to make sure that they're eating sufficient protein and that they're doing some physical activity to help counteract that, especially resistance training. Another thing they looked at lipids, blood pressure, and waist circumference, and they found that neither group saw significant changes in lipids, blood pressure, and waist circumference. However, the authors noted that most of the subjects in these studies had normal lipids and blood pressure at the onset of the trial, so you wouldn't expect to see much of a difference. Another thing is one of the studies for intermittent fasting, it was actually a study on alternate day fasting, did look at depression and binge eating, because this is often a concern with the intermittent fasting, is that, are we somehow perpetuating eating disorders or disordered eating or binge eating? And what they actually found was that after 8 weeks of alternate day fasting, depression and binge eating decreased, and that there was no exacerbation of disordered eating. So that's also good to know. So I think, this study just gives us additional evidence comparing intermittent fasting with continuous energy restriction. Again, looks at some of those concerns that some people might have with intermittent fasting, and shows that for some of our patients, especially our patients with insulin resistance or hyperinsulinemia, this intermittent fasting or intermittent energy restriction can be a really great option for a lot of our patients. So especially if you have those patients who can just report that, they'll go hours without eating, that they just don't have time to eat, they'll forget to eat, those patients could be great candidates for intermittent fasting. Or also some of those patients who just maybe aren't ready yet to really make daily changes to their nutrition. If they're really not willing to give up certain foods yet, you can start with intermittent fasting and kind of go from there. Of course, we do want everybody to be eating a healthier overall nutritional plan, but it can be a great place to start for some of those patients, or some of those patients who just have that diet fatigue, where if they know that, every other day or several times a week, they don't have to energy restrict, that can be very helpful mentally for some of those patients as well. So that's all we have for today. I hope you all come back next week for another episode of What's Up Wednesday. And don't forget to check out gaininghealth.com for resources and tools to help you with your obesity management program. I'll see you then. Bye.